So buckle up your seatbelts and get ready to ride into the discomfort zone, turning difficult conversations or situations into winning breakthroughs. Get ready for the ride. At least that's what the pilot said on my latest flight on United Airlines this past summer to Houston, Texas. My destination was Brownsville, if anyone knows where that is. But this story is, I kid you not, type of story. So we're on the tarmac, and about 10 minutes had gone by, and we're like, okay, he said we're getting ready to go, and nothing. So you know, if you've been on a plane before, people get a little bit restless, wondering what's going on. 20 minutes into the flight, people are starting to complain. And the pilot finally comes over the intercom and says, we're having some technical difficulties. There's just this little switch we can't figure out. Hang tight, we'll make up time in the air, right? Because we had the connecting flight to Brownsville. Again, didn't think anything of it. My passenger next to me is from the East Coast. Anyone in here from the East Coast? Yeah, we learned you don't mess with them, right? And she was getting antsy, so we started making conversation, trying to ease her. Of course, my husband to my left, I'm sandwiched in between the two. I'm like, okay, this is not pleasant. 30 minutes on the tarmac. The pilot gets on the intercom but does not know we can hear him and says, flight attendants, some people are asking to get off the plane. Can't you give them some drinks or something to calm them down? I'm giggling. I'm like, he realizes we're flying out of Salt Lake City, right? Like maybe a Diet Coke would have been a little bit better. And because I'm a trained listener, I can hear two stewardesses right next to me. Sometimes people don't realize you can hear what they say, right? And they're scooping up the ice now to get the sodas. And one stewardess says, they don't pay me enough for this crap. I'm like, oh, here we are in for a ride. So now we're going about 45, 50 minutes on the tarmac, and I know I'm going to miss the connecting flight, which ruins everybody's plans. And with that, there is a passenger from the plane that beelines it straight to the cockpit and goes in. Now, I don't know about you, but in my mind, at first you're like, okay, maybe he knows them. Okay, assume goodwill. Second thing that goes in my mind, are we in trouble? Is something happening here? About 4 or 5 minutes pass, and the passenger heads out of the cockpit. The pilot comes over the intercom again. Everybody, buckle up. We're truly ready for takeoff. A passenger has fixed our plane. My husband, Dean, and I, we turn around. Who was this passenger? And on the back of his shirt, it said Houston Engineer on it. We found out he was a rocket engineer as well as a helicopter engineer and qualified to fix that plane. We flew faster than ever in the air. Like it was like scary and thrilling and crazy all at once. And then once you land on the tarmac, you still have to get to your gate. Fastest we had gotten to our gate, and to say the least, we made our connection. And I'll probably give United another chance because they really cared about getting us there. I think the pilot was about to time out on his minutes, but that's the story of the flight, right? I just feel sometimes with communication, words that are said and not said, the different things that go on, there could be a lot of miscommunication. And so this is why this is called riding into the discomfort zone. Things that might be unpredictable to us or not fun, and how we can work through that. So we're going to talk about the art of conversation. When having a conversation, do you ever find yourself daydreaming, interrupting, thinking of what you want to say next, or not knowing what to say afterward, or maybe forgetting what was just said? I guarantee someone in this room has no idea the story I just said. They're like, what? Okay, tarmac, United, that's all they got. Okay, yes, perhaps there is room for growth as a good listener. So Stephen R. Covey observed, most people do not listen with the intent to understand. They listen with the intent to reply. How many of you guys agree with that? Great man, did some studying, with his 7 habits and things like that. That's gotten me thinking. As a counselor, I'm a trained listener, but we're also problem solvers, especially as we reach adulthood. We want to solve problems and come up with solutions as quickly as we can. And sometimes we rob people of coming up with their own solutions. Again, I know in the industry you're working in, sometimes it can be a matter of life and death. That's a different situation. We're talking about some just everyday common problems there. Okay, We're going to have some interaction. I knew you guys would be the right group for this, so don't be afraid to volunteer your thoughts. But I want some of you to answer this question. What is the difference between hearing versus listening? What do you think? Yeah, go ahead, Heather.
So when you're hearing it, you can hear the traffic go by, you can hear people's conversations, but when you're listening, you're really trying to understand, you're trying to make a connection.
Perfect. Yeah, great definition. Do you guys agree with that, with Heather's definition of that? Yeah, so hearing is just kind of words, and that happens in life a lot. It maybe happens to us that others aren't really listening. And sometimes we are in that mode because we get hyper-focused on something else. It's life. And listening is like, what are they really saying? What do they really want me to hear? But sometimes even in listening, there can be a few hiccups. So here we go.
It's just, there's all this pressure, you know? And sometimes it feels like it's right up on me. And I can just feel it, like literally feel it in my head. And it's relentless. And I don't know if it's going to stop. I mean, that's the thing that scares me most, is that I don't know if it's ever going to stop.
Yeah. Well, you do have a nail in your head.
It is not about the nail.
Are you sure? Because, I mean, I'll bet if we got that out of there.
Stop trying to fix it.
No, I'm not trying to fix it. I'm just pointing out that maybe the nail is causing...
You always do this. You always try to fix things when what I really need is for you to just listen.
See, I don't think that is what you need. I think what you need is to get the nail.
See, you're not listening now.
Okay, fine. I will listen. Fine.
It's just, sometimes it's like, there's this achy, I don't know what it is. And I'm not sleeping very well at all. And all my sweaters are snagged. I mean, all of them.
That sounds really hard.
It is. Thank you. Ow!
Come on, if you would just...
Don't.
How many of you have seen that before? A lot of us in this room probably. Such a classic. It's not about the nail. And if anything you take away from today, the phrase, that must be difficult. That must be really hard for you. That can help a person just be validated, right? And maybe they can start coming with their own solutions. They're looking more for like that compassion or maybe even that empathy piece. So Mr. Rogers, anyone grow up with Mr. Rogers? Wise man. In times of stress, the best thing we can do for each other is to listen with our ears and hearts and to be assured that our questions are just as important as our answers. He's talking about the art of listening and really not just hearing what they say, but internalizing and to see how to help that person or just show that compassion for them. Anyone ever heard the word active listening or term active listening? Okay, anyone know what it is? So it's not just listening, but now we have the word active added to it. Anyone know what active listening might be? Any ideas? Everyone's like, I wish I didn't raise my hand now. Yeah, go ahead, right here.
Usually offering like summaries of what they just said so that
Yeah.
they recognize that you're listening to
Yeah.
just thinking of what.
Perfect, and like some clarifying questions, things like that. Sometimes with active listening, you can show like you're leaning in, your eyes are looking at them, your hands are down off of your phone or whatever. We're showing that we're a participant in the conversation. So you're like, oh no, we're going to talk about body language. That's such a soft science. Body language is really fun to look at, and there is some data behind this and some science to understand when people are looking at us, how they're holding their bodies, where are their eyes, their hands, what are they doing, what's the message behind the message type of thing. So we're going to have some fun with this, but I wanted to show you the statistics on this. This is called Mehrabian formula. And when we meet somebody, within the first 7 seconds, we're usually making kind of a judgment, and it can change, our perception can change. But it's called the 7-38-55 rule. And what it is when we interact with people, 7% is really just words. That probably shocks some of you. It shocked me when I heard about this data. 7%. We give meaning to words and value to the words, but 38% to their tone of voice. Are they talking really fast and excited and they're getting us excited too? Or are they talking slower, maybe kind of boring, kind of like Bueller, right? Bueller. But the tone matters. And then 55% is our body languages, our body language, the things we do, even how we're walking across the stage and carry ourselves, right? So and some of my data comes from the American Psychological Association. This science is as old as 1967, probably even before that, but they got there. So just so you know where I'm getting some of this information from. So I wanted to talk to you a little bit about some of these things. So we're gonna have some fun. So in this first picture right here, you're probably thinking, oh, the body languages, she's just not interested. Well, you'd be right, but what I'm just gonna walk. Sorry, hopefully that doesn't ruin things over here. I wanted to point out, it's the guy and his hand placement that we're going to talk about. So whenever there are hands pointed, they're saying, it's your turn to speak, pretty much. Now, if hands are open like this, it means I'm listening and I'm open to what you have to say. So it's okay that his hands are closed. He's still saying, hey, I'm here for you. He's proceeding cautiously, but he's saying, talk to me. Isn't that interesting? You can get that from a picture. The middle picture, I want your opinions. You're going to vote if you think she's closed off, feeling cold, like burr cold, not offish, or is she open? So raise your hand if you think that is a sign of being closed off. Okay. What do you think? Maybe is she just cold? It's chilly in Utah or something, right? Anyone? Okay. Or how many think she's pretty open? Like meaning attitude open type of thing. Okay. So it's going to surprise you. The answer is open. Let me tell you about folding arms. In the days of yore, folding arms, they always say, it's just a sign they're off. Well, if I'm folding my arms and both my hands are hidden, that's usually what it means. I will be honest with you, and you guys relate to this, sometimes it means I'm cold, or I just don't know what else to do with my hands, right? So sometimes we read into body language into things that aren't really there. However, I had an opportunity at a conference a couple of years ago. There was a lady who was a forensic scientist, and she worked the O.J. Simpson trial. Everything was so cool. She said, when you fold your arms, if you at least have one hand out, it's still showing open. The fact that this lady has two hands out is showing I'm still open to conversation. I just am folding my arms. Just thought that might be interesting to you. Now, this other picture here, we might be able to find commonly in some of our homes, right? You've got this daughter. Her body's not turned towards dad, but this part of her body is, right? And she's saying, hey, listen to me, I want to show you something. So it might have been spur of the moment, or show me what you saw, I can hear the video. And dad's like this, just a minute. So at least he's like communicating with her. And of course, mom, that could be me, I find something funny on the phone. But the messages we give each other where we're not even talking or saying a word are kind of a big deal there. Okay, so I'm looking for 2 volunteers. There is a prize involved, so be thinking if you're willing. This is something pretty simple and easy, but you are going to come up onto the stage with me, and we're going to just have you portray some body language, and everyone's going to guess what it could be interpreted as. Come on, there's got to be at least 2 people. Thank you, come on up, one more. Come on, Heather, I knew, come on up. Okay, so just come on up, and I'm going to read a statement. What's your name? Catherine. Catherine, you're going to be the odd numbers. So I'll say 1, and you do this. Heather, you'll be the even numbers, and they're going to portray this, and you're going to guess what you think it means. You got it? Okay, Catherine, pinching or touching any part of the face or nail biting. So just, you could be like, nail biting or just something. She's like, what do you guys think it might mean? Okay, insecurity, nervousness, good job. Now this, again, it can be left to interpretation what it truly means. Maybe there was an itch, like we don't know, right? But when they do job interviews, things like that, these are some things they're looking for, so kind of funny. Okay, Heather, touching your nose while talking. What do you think that could mean? Any ideas? Nervous. What else? Confused. This way. He, or I should say she, is lying. Who knew when people are talking? But guess what? I just had an itch on my nose, so I'm like, I'm really not lying. But anyway, but that's kind of a sign when people are looking away and touching their nose. It's kind of like they're brushing off that shame. Okay, Catherine, support hand on chin. What do you think? You said Henri? Pondering. Oh, pondering. Pondering or thinking. Yeah, we can all be honoring. You're right. Or it could be boredom, lack of fatigue. So they could just be pondering. I agree with that. But sometimes it's like we're trying to support our heads because we're just tired and we're like, we're checked out, we're done. Stroking their chin. Oh, I just told you the answer. What do you think it means when they stroke their chin? Positive acceptance, decision making. Okay, Catherine, yours. Twist and entangled hands, opening and closing fists. What do you think if someone was doing that a lot? Any ideas? Anxious, yep, anxiety, good job. Okay, Heather, interlace the fingers. Any ideas? What do you think? Authority and security. They're like, the deal is closed. Okay, 7, palms open and an upward hand. What do you guys think about that one?
That's interesting too, because depending on how you're doing it, like if you were like,
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah. What are we doing with our shoulders? Is like, I don't know, like, hey, you're right. It's all, good job. Sincerity and good intentions. It's kind of like, I have something to offer you type of thing. Okay, but you're right. I think it depends on those shoulders. Okay, playing with a pen, ring, or any other object. I do that too. I click a pen a lot. It's a little tick that I have. What do you think that might mean? I think you could be right. Distraction, nervousness. Sometimes we do that, sometimes to pass the time or whatever. Okay, Catherine, tap your fingers against a table or armrest of the chair. Yep, come on up, come on up.
I like to do this one.
Yeah, I do too. Any ideas? I do this one a bit. Impatience. Yeah. Sometimes we're like, okay, just get on with it. Just spit it out. Say what you wanted to say. Okay. Heather, having crossed arms at chest height. So not just down here. Yeah, kind of like that. Oh, you guys are good. Right, people. Defensiveness, kind of like no. Okay, guess what the prizes are? Everyone give them a hand. You have an exfoliating glove. Exfoliating glove. Thanks, you guys. Yeah, of course we could have some fun today. Okay, we're going to have a little more fun. Don't think I'm such a weirdo here. But about a decade ago, I saw this documentary on presidential handshakes, and I just haven't been able to get it out of my mind. So I include it. You might find it interesting. Others of you might roll your eyes, and that's okay. I take the hands off because I've done this before, and it can cause a riot. So we are just not going to say who they are. You might be able to figure it out. It's the same guy in every one. So this first one up here is interesting. These two leaders, this person here on the left is known for grabbing someone's hand and pulling them into his space, basically saying, I'm in control always, right? Well, this other official here kind of took him off guard, pulling his hand in, and whenever they try and get their hand on top, especially their thumbs, to show I'm the leader here. So that's what's kind of happening here. This one said it was really kind of awkward, but this is at the beginning here of their leadership. Okay, we're moving over here. Now this one is interesting to me because both hands are open, meaning they're seeing equality with each other. Now this person, their thumb's ultimately going to land on top, but I never thought I'd see that. So they must really respect each other in this picture, right? Like, hey, we're on common ground. I'm still the leader, but I'm going to value what you say. Okay, this one I'm going to tell you, it was the Canadian Prime Minister. I'll tell you that much. And what had happened is because this person grabbed their hand and pulled him in, he became off balance, and that's why that arm is there. It's so he doesn't fall over into him, and you can definitely see the thumb on top. And he said it was kind of awkward, but this person needed to show, hey, I'm the dominant leader here, is what we're going to do. Now I want to show you the growth that has happened. Years into the term, this leader here, usually when we put somebody's hand, our hand on their back, it's kind of like, there, kind of like a little child, let me guide you. I have the answers. I'm going to save you or whatever. And that could have been happening in here. But what's really interesting, do you see the hands here? This person let this leader have their hand on top in a very gentle manner. So I know this person really holds this person in an endearing situation and looks up to them. Who knew? that much from a handshake. Something kind of fun. I like to throw it in when you talk about things like that. So you kind of see how somebody can start out kind of strong and then they start to soften as they get more secure with themselves as well too. Okay, right into the discomfort zone, what this whole thing is about. I want to explain to you what the discomfort zone even means and what it can look like. So here's just kind of a little chart to show you. Sometimes we're feeling comfortable, maybe you're in your home or maybe you're at work or at the store or whatever, and things are routine as normal. And then something happens. Maybe somebody's cart bumps into yours if you're at the store, or there's a doorbell that rings and you're like, I don't even want to get the door today, right? Something happens to stretch you. And it can be seen as unpleasant. It can be a challenge at work. Maybe there's a little tisk you've had, a family member, a neighbor, whoever, but it can be very not fun. Is that even a true sentence? Very not fun. We'll pretend it is. But that's why we call it the stretch zone. Now, left unchecked, it can lead to panic. So early on in my career as an educator, I worked at various high schools. And I remember one student really was in the middle of a panic attack, and I was the panic attack expert. I can get somebody down from anxiety pretty quickly, to be quite honest. It's about getting them comfortable. And this student was pounding on their legs, twisting their hair. They were tardy to a class, and the teacher had kicked him out. And I was like, don't do that to my students. Like, come on. And so we just kind of did some deep breathing exercises and worked through things like that. But the student was definitely in the panic zone. Anxiety, fear, worry, stress left unchecked can lead to panic. Many of us in this room have probably been there. I'll admit I've had panic attacks before in my life. Never thought I would because I'm an expert on this, but it can happen. So we're going to talk about something a little different. How we calm down the human brain. And I want to show you how we teach this to the young'uns here. So everybody just go ahead and put your hand up like this, if you will, okay? Now you're going to bring your thumb across and then your fingers over your thumb. This is going to represent like one hemisphere of the brain. So right here is the prefrontal cortex. We call it the wise owl, okay? This is your logic and this is your thinking, your big learning zone, really. A lot of you are right here. You're using the wise owl right now. We're like in the calm zone. Now, if we lift up the wise owl's feathers, I know you're not kids, but this is, for simplicity. Right here's the amygdala, about the middle of the brain. But we call it the barking dog. And this is like when you put up your dukes, your fight or flight, but now we've got the freeze and the appease zone, all of that. But that barking dog is actually there to protect you. We're going to thank the barking dog for most of the time. And then down here, this part is going to be the hippocampus. Yes, we call it the memory elephant, even though you're like, shouldn't it be a hippopotamus? I didn't name it, but this is the memory. And it can also be affected when we're in the middle of the barking dog zone. It can affect the wise owl because he flies away, uncomfortable, and it can affect how we remember past events. So sometimes people will sensationalize things that have happened in the past where you thought you moved past things, but they're always drudging it up. Has anyone ever met someone like that? They're always drudging up the past, and what you remember is not what they're remembering, things like that. Okay, so here's the example. Say that you're just playing catch in your front yard, and the ball rolls into the road. And so you go into the road, and you look down the street, and you see a car coming. The barking dog says, you are in danger. Get out of the road. Grab the ball, jump to the sidewalk, the grass, whatever. You're safe. And you're like, thank you, barking dog. You just saved me. What happens sometimes, unfortunately, is this barking dog goes off even when we're not in danger. So if you had experienced a lot of trauma in your life, some of the clients that you will be working with, that barking dog is going off a lot. Anyone who's had problems like with substance abuse, they go straight to barking dogs sometimes when they problem solve. That's what they're used to. And so you cannot speak logically with them because they always are assuming ill will because they're trying to be protected. What you have to do is we calm down the barking dog, the wise owl comes back, and then we can talk logically with them and make some good decisions. Raise your hand if this makes sense. I know it makes sense to pretty much every one of you. Like, this is what you do, what you work with. So when we ride into the discomfort zone, we're saying, thank you, barking dog, but I'm okay. Like if we're in the middle of the freeway and our barking dog's going off because somebody cut you off, we have got to say, I'm okay. I'm in control here. Thank you for trying to protect me, but I've got this. I've got this. I'll talk to you later when it's at night and we can have our full out-blown cry session or whatever, right? You need to do. But hopefully to explain a little more. And I know one of you in this audience is actually a brain expert, so hopefully I did that okay. So this is the new lens to look on the discomfort zone. So here's the old lens down here that I just talked to you about. Again, I'm just gonna walk over here. Okay, so old lens here. But the lens with which we view discomfort determines the outcome. So here's the new graph I wanted to show you. We've got the comfort zone, something challenges us. But the way we view that challenge can either lead to panic or confidence, saying, this is uncomfortable, I hate it, but I'm confident I'm gonna work through this. It's going to be okay in the long run. It might take 20 years, right, or whatever, but I've got this. I'm going to survive this. And then it leads to what's called the sweet spot. You might be like, wait, you're throwing way too many terms at me. Discomfort, confidence zone, sweet spot. What does that even mean? Well, I want to show you what the sweet spot really means. So a lot of coaches and people in the athletic world, they use what's called the Yerkes-Dodson stress performance curve. So when we don't have any stress, we're down here, like, don't you love the word lame? But that's what they mean. When there's no stress, you're just like doing nothingness, really. And once in a while, that's kind of nice. Gives us a break. We're sleeping, but you're inactive and you're bored. It's hard to stay here because there can be problems there as well. But say something, you have an opportunity, a goal, a project you're working on. So you're feeling some healthy tension. You're finding this energy because of that discomfort, that challenge. It does bring energy, let's be honest. You're feeling a little more motivated. You get focused, and right here's your peak performance called the sweet spot. You want an athlete especially, or maybe somebody going to do a piano performance, something like that. You want them in the sweet spot. You want just enough healthy tension that their body has the energy to perform the task that they need to perform. So if I ask a question at the end and I say, what's the sweet spot? The answer is peak performance. The problem can be this. Sometimes we let stress overcome us or discomfort overcome us, and it could lead now again to fatigue, exhaustion, panic, anxiety, danger, burnout, disease, heart disease, hypertension, all of that. Ulcers, stomach aches, headaches, chronic headaches, things like that. So stress can be your friend when kept in check. When we let it overtake us and consume us, it can make us sick. So we're gonna have some fun. I want you to have some discomfort right now. Here we go. Okay, what's this right here? What is it? Rocky. He ran up those steps. He's like, I've got this. V is for victory, right? So if that's your pose, great. Be thinking of one of these poses. Wonder Woman. This is definitely a power pose. Some people do this in front of a mirror sometimes, pump themselves, I've got this, I can do this, I've got this, convincing themselves, right? And I had to throw this one in. Anyone know what this is from? Oh, you guys are my people. This is just him walking out after he had just had the tension. And he's like, yeah, I rock. Okay, I'm going to count to 3, and I want you to stand up and choose your pose. It doesn't have to be one of these 3. You might have your own pose. I don't know. Maybe you're flying like a plane, whatever it is. Something that helps you feel empowered, okay? And then we're going to say, I've got this. The power it is of that spoken word, even though words are only words, we want to do body language with it. When your brain hears you say these words, that's very powerful to your psyche. Are you guys ready? And then I want you to hold that pose if you can for like 3 seconds, and then we'll do it. Okay. I'm doing Judd Nelson. I have to do that one, but you guys can do yours, okay? Everyone stand up, and I'm gonna say 1, 2, 3, I'm gonna say, I've got this. And I want you to own it. I don't want you to be like, I've got this, and maybe no one will notice that you didn't say anything. No, we're gonna notice. Okay, you guys ready? 1, 2, 3. I've got this! Okay, give yourselves a hand and sit down. That might not have been uncomfortable for anyone, but I was hoping to give you a little uncomfortable to show that you survived it. You're fine. We've got this. Okay, another activity. Like, this lady has too much energy for the morning, but here we go. This is a listening activity to see if you can follow instructions to show sometimes it's hard, even when you are really listening, to kind of follow along when somebody just blah, 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 blah. It's called walk, stop, jump, clap. So everyone stand up again. Sorry. And the first 2 instructions are just going to be walk and then stop. That's it. You guys ready? Okay, let's practice. Walk. And you can walk in place, around the room, wherever you want to go. Stop. Walk. Stop. Now we're going to add in jump and clap. So if I say jump, you can jump little. You don't have to jump high. And then clap. It's just one clap. Just one clap. You ready? Walk. Stop. Jump. Clap. Jump. Clap. Okay, now we're going to level up. You guys ready? Walk and stop are going to mean the opposite. So if I say walk, I want you to stop. And when I say stop, I want you to walk. But I'm going to show you the power of body language. As much as you want to fight this, I'm going to predict what's going to happen. Jump's going to mean clap, and clap's going to mean jump. You ready? Walk. Stop. Jump. Clap. Clap. Jump. Walk. Stop. Stop. Walk. Walk again. Jump. Jump. Clap. Clap louder. Okay, have a seat. Good job, you guys. You guys did better than you were supposed to. You were supposed to mess up, but you did pretty good. It takes some thinking, doesn't it? You're like, what just happened there? So, yeah. And it can show you, like, sometimes in communication, they're doing things differently than what we hear them say, right? And so it's hard. How am I interpreting this? What's their true intention? What are we meaning? I wish you could have known my dad. This picture was taken 2019. No, it wasn't. 2018. He passed in 2019, so New Year's Eve 2018. And this is my cute little mama. She's Swedish, just turned 91. Isn't she darling? She'll be 92 in March. So what you don't know about my dad is that he had Parkinson's disease. So he shuffled when he walked and whispered when he talked. And we'd often say, Dad, you need to use your loud voice so we can hear you. And my mom, I was going to call her Grandma, my mom's partially deaf. Actually, I should say mostly deaf. And so we'd call him the Laurel and Hardy Show, because my mom would be like, what's that, Jim? And he'd be trying to shout. And they were just so cute together. But Dad in this picture, what he's conveying to me is the term carpe diem, seize the day. Dad was a pilot in the Air Force, and after serving in the Korean conflict, he just couldn't get airplanes out of his system, so he decided to build them instead. Isn't that just darling? Just the greatest generation that ever lived. But when he built planes, he built model airplanes, as you can see right here, and then he'd compete in air shows, and he would often win. My childhood was spent all over Salt Lake City, going from hobby store to hobby store, to find the right plywood and the paint and sander, not to mention the engine and the propellers. And so there is a field just west of Mount Jordan Middle School, just east of Jordan Commons. Do you guys know where I'm talking about? There's a huge field there, and that was our practice field. And so my mom would say, go with your dad, help practice flying the planes, but get him home in time for dinner. My job was to get him home, right? Well, I get to the practice field, and my dad says, no, I've got a different job for you. Your job's going to be to go retrieve the planes, because once they land on the ground, he didn't want to have to run all over to retrieve them. So I would run, had the energy, I'd retrieve the plane, bring it back to Dad. Well, I remember this particular day. I'm only about 8 years old at this time. And the plane is going, things are going great. It was a plane he'd worked really hard on. I mean, he did build these from scratch. And the wind caught it just right, or I should say just wrong. And the plane starts to do this whirly. And I know it's going to crash. And the ground was still kind of hard. It was fall at the time, and the ground was getting a little cold. And I hear him saying, run, Michelle, run. And my legs are running as fast as they can. But I don't make it in time. And that plane crashes and splatters on that ground. And I do too. I fall to the ground and I start crying. And the next thing I know is I feel this hand on my back. And it's my dad, and he's like, oh, Mitchell, that was my nickname. He said, it's okay. And I'm looking up through my tears, I was saying, he says, don't you get it? He says, now I get to build a new one. So I knew that day I wasn't there just to go retrieve a plane or get my dad home for dinner on time. I was learning resilience. Broken things can be repaired. Lost things can be found. I've told this story many times. I choke up, so sorry about that. And I also learned that a father's relationship with his daughter is worth more than his prize plane. So talk about a way to communicate with your daughter and convey a message that you don't have to say with your words. Okay, so Emily, will you pass out some of these papers? Emily's going to pass out some papers to each of you. Just put some piles at tables. And we're going to kind of workshop this. Has anyone ever heard of Jefferson Fisher? He's an attorney. Okay, yes, okay. I know. Well, I've actually bought a course from him. Is that okay? He is an argument lawyer, and he teaches you how to argue better. I'm not saying we're going to teach you to be manipulative today, but to maybe not get into an argument. Does that make sense? Or how to work your way out of one or prevent one. I just feel like this is going to be pretty valuable to some of you. So this is where it comes from, fisherfirm.com. He has a book coming out in the spring, I think, and I've already pre-ordered it. I'm not saying he's like the end-all, be-all, but he has some good wisdom. He's pretty close. Emily, can I have one of those as well? Thank you. So I can see what we're doing. Okay, so what we're going to do on here, let's do the side that says assertiveness first. And let's just go from table to table. Let's have you guys be table 1. You guys are going to do how to sound more assertive. And we'll just have you round robin read it. And you can always pass if you don't want to. So we'll go 1, 2, 3, and then we'll come to the next one. But let's start on how to sound more assertive. So go ahead and read that.
Begin with I, not you. Instead of, you can't speak to me that way, say, I don't respond to that tone.
And that one's tricky because it's how you say that. You can either incite another argument or you can kind of squash it. Like, I don't respond to that tone. Well, you just gave the tone, right? But I don't respond to that tone, like you can't calm down. Okay, I'm saying too much. Let's let you guys do some of the talking. Here we go.
Act on your own timing. I will when I'm ready.
Mm-hmm.
State your preference often. I prefer you didn't do that, or I prefer not to.
Yeah, and I've had some people say that to me. I'm like, oh, they're good, right? Okay, how to be less emotionally reactive. Let's go right here.
Have something to learn, not something to prove.
It's hard. And let's go back to this table if you can.
Control the reaction by saying, I can feel myself getting worked up. Think and reflect to yourself, why does that behavior trigger me?
Yeah, we get triggered a lot, don't we? Sometimes we have to look at ourselves. Okay, how to not lose your patience. Go ahead, Heather.
Say to yourself, there is something for you to learn if you listen.
Yep, I love it. Go ahead.
Say to yourself you're exactly where you need to be. Say to yourself, you are needed in this moment.
Awesome. And then last here.
Take a deep breath.
Best sentence on the paper, right? Okay, what if you need to apologize? Go ahead.
Begin with, I'm sorry that I'm sorry that you. State the change for the future. Next time I will.
Finish your apology with a period. I'm sorry that.
Yeah, good job. Okay, turn it over. Now, this is where we're going to get a little more nitty-gritty because it's with arguments. Being assertive, my guess is most of us in this room, we try to be assertive as much as possible. You know, we're humans too. Sometimes we get passive or aggressive, but I think most of you in this room are pretty assertive. Now it's time for arguments. What if you're arguing with someone or they're trying to argue with you? Okay, how to stand up for yourself. Go ahead.
Don't apologize before expressing feelings. Instead of, I'm sorry, I kind of feel uncomfortable, say, I feel uncomfortable.
Yep, awesome. Yeah, let's come up here.
Right here.
Yeah.
State exactly how you feel instead of I could be wrong, but I feel, say I feel that.
Yeah, go ahead. Right.
Say no without justifying or using because after it, instead of no, because I have to just say no.
And that's a hard one, I think, for a lot of us. How to talk with someone who won't see your side or thinks they are always right. I know the ears just perked up on this one for a lot of us, right? Yeah, go ahead.
Diffuse the tension with maybe you're right.
Question their stance. What information would change your opinion?
And there's a little typo on that. The word diffuse is spelled differently. Okay, let's come over to this table, the last one on how to talk to someone who won't see your side.
Make them challenge their perspective. Are you willing to see it from my point of view?
Ooh, that's a great one. Back to this table, when they raise their voice.
De-escalate by asking, is this a conversation that needs more time than we have right now?
Okay, with a low voice, you say, can you repeat that?
Always keep your voice lower and slower than theirs.
And I'll read the last one. Do not respond. Let silence be your response. And before we go to the last one, I wanted to bring you up to where it says, with a low voice, calmly say, can you repeat that? That's the one that has really rang true to me, and I've tried out, and it works. When somebody's like in your face, if you just say, can you repeat that? You could say, I don't think I caught all of that. What it's going to do is they have to repeat what they just said, because sometimes their words came out not how they meant, and it's going to catch them on that. So they can restate it, so you can see, you peel back the layers, what's really being said there. And the second time they say it, they're going to say it calmer than they did the first time. I'm telling you, that is a magical statement. Can you repeat that? And then once we slow down our speech and lower our voice, it's going to be calming to people. And then I do like let silence be response. And I'll just do the last one. How to reconnect after an argument. So what if the tension's there? It's a coworker, a family member, whatever, a neighbor. Acknowledge, I hear you, and I acknowledge my part of this. That takes a lot of confidence to say that statement. Own your actions. I could have handled that differently. Can we have a redo? That would be a beautiful thing to say to somebody, or have somebody say to you. And then state the new future behavior. Next time I'm going to. So hopefully you'll find this valuable. If these end up in the trash, that's up to you. But I wanted to give you a few of these little golden nuggets. Okay. Sometimes when we have been maybe betrayed or disrespected, we will often put on what's called the negative bias, the negative lens, and we think everyone's out to get us. No matter what they say, we are assuming ill will, right? And we're always on the defensive. I've been in that boat, and I've had somebody else on the receiving. I'm like, I didn't mean ill will. Like, it could be a simple statement like, yeah, that looks cute. Or you'd be like, yeah, that looks cute. Like, you know what I mean? And so because of the texting world we live in and technology, it's really hard to understand the tone of a message. And so how it's received can be tricky. And so we already talked about this at the beginning, how this is active listening. But here are some other key phrases. What did you mean when you said? That's how you can get them to clarify, so you can know their true intent. Can you tell me more about? Or how did you feel when this happened? And so it's showing some compassion there. These are also key statements, whether it's your clients you're working with or somebody, to show you're interested in what they're saying and you don't take it as an argument. Does that make sense? Raise your hand if that makes sense. Sometimes I feel like, okay, what are we doing? Okay, the cliff shuffles. Anyone familiar with this? Oh yeah, okay. Not a lot of you, and that's okay, because it's been nearly a generation since he passed away in 2003 at the spry age of 81. But this story is about what he did in 1983 at the awesome age of 61, when he turned the running world upside down. You see, Cliff was a potato farmer in Australia. And he showed up at something in Australia called the Ultra Marathon. It's a 544-mile race, and it takes about a week long to compete and finish this. You have the most professional runners from around the world competing. So when he showed up at the check-in table to get his bib, with his number on it, you can imagine he was greeted with some sneers and jeers like, is this guy for real? He had some Roddy tennis shoes on. Well, it's right here, you can see. And he had cut holes in his Levi's for a makeshift ventilation system. But they gave him his number, and he goes to line up at the starting line, and he sees all the other runners, in their gear. Their shoes, all their sponsors, and names of their sponsors all over, and they're just kind of looking at Cliff like, oh, brother, like, who's this guy? But then they have to focus on the race, right? So the starting gun goes off, and all the runners take off, and they leave him in the dust. Cliff gets up, and he starts shuffling. That's how he runs. He does the shuffle, right? And he keeps going. However, there's something they didn't know about Cliff. Not only was he a potato farmer, he had about 2,000 sheep, over 2,000 acres over there in Australia. And growing up, when there was a storm rolling in, it was his job to round up all the sheep and get them to safety. He remembers going 2, sometimes 3 days at a time without sleep, trying to account for every last sheep to make sure they were sheltered. Pretty cool. He was used to endurance and not sleep. During a race such as this, they would usually run for 18 hours and then sleep for 6. That would be the healthy and logical thing to do. Replenish your body, right? Stay healthy in this race. So the other runners would run and then they would sleep and Cliff would keep going. He'd just keep going. And so by morning, Cliff would be ahead of them. But like that first few days, the runners would not just catch up and then they'd pass him, right? And that went on for many days. By the end of the week, Cliff crossed that finish line, not just in first place, but by a long shot, 10 hours ahead of the second place runner. And that's how he got the title, the Cliff Shuffle. He won about $10,000 and he split it with all of the other runners. Kind of sweet, right? So this story to me, great story about the discomfort zone and how sometimes we underestimate ourselves. And if we can have that belief in ourselves, despite all the jeers and the sneers of all the onlookers and all of the doubt that we have, but that we can ride into that discomfort zone and say, I've got this, I've got this. Okay, watch this video. We'll talk about it.
Now, my whole house is great. I can do anything good. I like my school. I like anything. I like my dad. I like my cousins. I like my aunts. I like my Allisons. I like my mom. I like my sisters. I like my dad. I like I like my hair. I like my haircuts. I like my pajamas. I like my stuff. I like my room. I like my whole house. My whole house is great. I can do anything good. Yeah. I can do anything good. Better than anyone.
Pretty awesome. That's called Jessica's Daily Affirmations. You know that she is surrounded by people that love her and believe in her and believe in the power of words, the power of body language, and the power of our tone and riding into that discomfort zone. So here's our questions. Let's see who can answer these. Just shout it out if you know. The first one might be the hardest one, but I think you've got this. What is the difference between listening and hearing? What is it? Understanding. I like that. What branch of service did my dad serve in? Got it. Regarding the discomfort zone, what is the sweet spot? Oh, you remembered. What is the power pose and who can portray it? So you got to do it. You can't just sit there and do it. Who's going to do it for me? Stand up. Yay. He saved you all today. Okay, what do they call the way Cliff Young runs? The Cliff Shuffle. Okay, here's the bonus. What type of bottle was my mom holding in the New Year's Eve picture? Oh, you guys are so good. Congratulations. You have just mastered riding into the discomfort zone. Awesome, awesome. Okay. So now I've told her we're going to have about a 15-minute break, right? We'll meet, there's Megan, right back in here. Get ready for some fun. This is your content presentation we just went through, and now we're going to have some fun and play together. So we'll see you guys in about 15 minutes.